The rain fell in soft sheets over Portland, Oregon, cloaking the quiet suburb of Maplewood in a gentle gray haze. Emma Wilson sat curled on her couch, the glow of a single lamp casting shadows across her modest living room. The clock on the wall ticked past 9 p.m., its rhythm steady against the patter of raindrops on the windows. She was 25, a graphic designer who worked remotely, and her life was a careful balance of routine and solitude. Her home, a small craftsman-style house on Maple Street, was her sanctuary where she could escape the world's chaos. But tonight, that sanctuary was about to be shattered. A sharp knock on the front door jolted Emma upright. Her heart thudded, an instinctive alarm ringing through her body before her mind could catch up. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her father, Michael, a retired firefighter, lived across town and always called before visiting. Her best friend Lily was out of state for a wedding. The knock came again, louder, more insistent, cutting through the hum of the rain. Emma's hand tightened around the pendant hanging from her neck, a silver crescent moon, etched with delicate runes, a gift from her late grandmother Clara. Clara had been a storyteller weaving tales of spirits and second chances, and she'd pressed the pendant into Emma's hand before passing, whispering, "This holds the power to rewrite your fate if you're brave enough to seize it." Emma's feet moved before her brain could process, carrying her to the door. She flung it open, the cool night air rushing in, and there he stood, Ryan Carter, her childhood friend, the boy she'd once loved with every fiber of her being. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, soaked from the rain, and his face was flushed an unnatural red. His blue eyes, usually sharp and confident, were wild, dazed, glinting with a feverish intensity. His breathing was rough-heaving, as if he'd sprinted across town. "Emma, please help me," he rasped, his voice trembling with pain and desperation. His hands gripped the doorframe, knuckles white, as he swayed slightly, like a man fighting to stay upright. Emma froze, her breath catching in her throat. The scene was a mirror of a moment from another life where she'd opened this same door, seen this same Ryan, and made a choice that led to her destruction. The pendant against her chest pulsed with a faint, warm glow, a sensation she'd never felt before. It was as if Clara's voice echoed in her mind. "You've been given a second chance, Emma. Don't repeat the past." In that other life, Ryan had been drugged, his control stripped away, and Emma, naive and trusting, had let him in only to be assaulted, humiliated, and broken. The memory hit her like a wave, sharp and suffocating, threatening to pull her under. Ryan's eyes locked onto hers, damp with unshed tears, his expression a tangled mess of pain and something darker desire he was struggling to suppress. "Emma, I can't take it," he stammered, his voice hoarse, almost pleading. "I need you." His words were a knife to her heart, slicing open old wounds. She remembered how those words had once melted her, how her love for Ryan had blinded her to the danger. They'd grown up together, neighbors in this suburb, sharing summers at the local park, sneaking into movies and dreaming of intertwined futures. But that was before Rachel, Ryan's girlfriend, entered the picture, before everything unraveled. Emma's hand tightened on the pendant, its warmth grounding her. She wasn't that girl anymore. She wasn't the Emma who'd loved Ryan unquestioningly but trusted him despite the warning signs. The pendant had brought her back, how she didn't know, but its glow felt like a promise, a gift from Clara's spirit to right the wrongs of her past. She stepped back, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Ryan, you need to leave," she said, her tone firm, but he didn't move, his gaze growing more desperate, his hand reaching toward her. "Please, Emma, help me. I don't know what's happening to me." The air grew heavy, charged with the weight of her decision. This was the moment where her past life had diverged into tragedy. She could feel the pull of that old instinct to help save and love, but the pendant's warmth was a reminder of her rebirth, her chance to choose differently. "No," she whispered, more to herself than to him. She slammed the door shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet house. Ryan's muffled shout followed, but Emma didn't hesitate. She bolted to the bathroom, locking the door behind her, her hands shaking as she pulled out her phone. Her fingers fumbled over the screen as she dialed 911. The call connected almost instantly. "Hello," she whispered, keeping her voice low. "My friend's been drugged. He's at my house acting erratically. Please come quickly. The address is 1423 Maple Street." The operator's calm voice assured her help was on the way, but Ryan's banging grew louder outside, his pleas more frantic. Emma opened the door. "You can't leave me like this." Each thud against the wood sent a jolt through her, but she pressed herself against the bathroom wall, clutching the pendant. She wouldn't open the door, not this time. As she waited, her mind raced. She thought of her father, Michael, who'd always been her rock, teaching her to trust her instincts. She thought of Susan and William Carter Ryan's parents, who owned a successful event planning business in Portland and had once treated her like a daughter. They'd disapproved of Rachel, a manipulative woman who'd charmed Ryan but always eyed Emma with jealousy. Emma knew Rachel was behind this. She'd drugged Ryan to test his loyalty, leaving Emma as the bait. Emma had fallen into that trap in her past life, but now, reborn, she was ready to fight back. The pendant glowed brighter, its warmth spreading through her chest. It was as if Clara's spirit was guiding her, whispering that this was her chance to rewrite her story. Emma's eyes darted to the bathroom mirror, catching her reflection, wide brown eyes, pale skin, a face hardened by memories of pain but lit with new resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the Emma who'd died in shame for the justice she'd never had. And maybe, just maybe, her story could inspire others to find their own strength. Speaking of stories, Emma thought with a flicker of defiance, if you're watching this tale unfold on our YouTube channel, hit that like button to show you're rooting for justice. Drop a comment to share your thoughts. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to rewrite your fate? And don't forget to subscribe for more gripping stories of vengeance and redemption. Your support keeps these tales alive, like Clara's pendant keeps Emma's hope burning. The sound of sirens in the distance snapped Emma back to the present. Help was coming. Ryan's banging weakened his voice, fading into a desperate whimper. Emma gripped the pendant, her heart pounding but her mind clear. This was only the beginning. She would protect herself, expose Rachel, and ensure the past never repeated itself. The rain outside fell harder, as if washing away the ghosts of her former life, leaving only the promise of a new one. Emma crouched in the bathroom, the cold tile pressing against her knees as she listened to Ryan's weakening pleas outside. The sirens were closer now, their wail cutting through the Portland rain like a beacon of hope. Her phone, still clutched in her hand, vibrated with a text from her father, Michael. Heard the sirens. You okay, kiddo? She typed a quick reply. I'm fine, Dad. Stay safe. And shoved the phone into her pocket. The pendant around her neck pulsed faintly, its warmth a steady reminder of her rebirth, a gift from her grandmother Clara's spirit to undo the horrors of her past life. The memory of that past life hit her like a storm. She was 23 then, still living in the same Maple Street house, designing logos for local businesses, still hopelessly in love with Ryan Carter. They'd been inseparable as kids, riding bikes through Maplewood's tree-lined streets, sharing secrets under the stars at Tryon Creek Park. Ryan was charming, the golden boy of their neighborhood, destined to inherit his parents' event-planning empire, Carter Celebrations. Emma had dreamed of a future with him, blind to the cracks in his character, his need for validation, his weakness for flattery. Then Rachel Bennett entered their lives. She was a temp at Carter Celebrations, with sharp smiles, calculated charm, and a knack for getting what she wanted. Ryan fell hard, dazzled by her confidence, while Rachel saw Emma as a threat, a childhood friend who lingered too close to her prize. Naive and trusting Emma didn't know the danger until it was too late. Rachel had orchestrated a cruel test during a company retreat at a rented cabin in the Columbia River Gorge. She slipped an aphrodisiac into Ryan's drink, left Emma alone with him, and waited to see if he'd stay loyal. He didn't. Emma's hands trembled as the memory played out. In that past life, she'd heard Ryan's desperate knocks, his pleas for help, just like tonight. Worried for his safety, she'd opened the door only to be overpowered. Ryan, lost to the drug's effects, had pinned her to the bed, his strength terrifying. For over an hour, he assaulted her, leaving her bruised and broken. When Rachel and the retreat group, Jake Ryan's co-worker, and Lily Rachel's cousin, barged in, they turned on Emma. You seduced him! Rachel screamed, tears staged for effect. How could you, Emma? He's mine. Ryan, dazed but desperate to please, Rachel echoed her lies. She must have drugged me. I'd never do this otherwise. The group's taunts followed, sharp and cruel. Desperate for a man, huh? Jake sneered. Bet you planned this, Lily added, her voice dripping with contempt. Emma curled up on the bed, her clothes torn, and could barely speak. It wasn't me, she whispered, but no one listened. The shame was crushing a weight that followed her home. She hid, avoiding Ryan, Rachel, and the world, but the nightmare wasn't over. Eager to prove his loyalty to Rachel, Ryan lured Emma to a meeting under the pretense of an apology. Instead, he spiked her drink and left her at a depraved party in a downtown Portland loft where she was assaulted again, this time by strangers, while cameras captured every moment. The scandal exploded online. Photos and videos, her face unblurred, spread across social media, branding her as Portland's pariah. Local designers, shameful night, the headline screamed. Emma confronted Ryan, her voice raw with pain. Why, Ryan? What did I do to deserve this? He laughed dismissively. It's just a few pictures. Pretend it was me. You got your moment of fame, Rachel smirking added. This is your karma, Emma. The final blow came when Emma, drowning in humiliation, slit her wrists in her bathtub, her blood staining the water as news of Ryan and Rachel's engagement flooded the media. Her death ironically cleared the way for Rachel to win over Ryan's parents who'd once favored Emma. The pendant's glow in the bathroom steadied Emma's racing heart. Clara's stories of second chances weren't just fairy tales. The pendant had brought her back to this night where it all began. She wasn't sure how it worked, only that its warmth felt like Clara's hand guiding her, urging her to fight. She thought of Michael, who'd raised her alone after her mother left, teaching her to stand tall. She thought of Susan Carter, who'd baked cookies for her and Ryan as kids, and William, who'd promised to fund her college art classes. They deserved to know the truth about Rachel, about Ryan's betrayal. Outside, Ryan's banging grew feeble, his voice a slurred whimper. Emma, please, I can't. The sirens were deafening, and red and blue lights flashed through the bathroom window. Emma gripped the broken beer bottle she'd grabbed from the kitchen, its jagged edge a last line of defense. She remembered Rachel's smug face in her past life, the way she'd orchestrated everything to break Emma while securing Ryan. This time, Emma wouldn't be the victim. She'd called the police, set the wheels in motion. Rachel's plan would backfire, and Emma would ensure it. The bathroom door rattled as Ryan slumped against it, his strength fading. Emma's mind flashed to Lily Rachel's shadow at the retreat, and Jake, who'd laughed at her pain. They'd known Rachel's plan but stayed silent, complicit in her cruelty. Emma vowed they'd face consequences too. The pendant pulsed as if affirming her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the Emma who'd died in despair for the justice she'd been denied. The police were seconds away, their boots pounding up the porch steps. Emma took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Her rebirth was a promise of vengeance and redemption. The rain pounded harder against the windows of Emma Wilson's small craftsman house on Maple Street, Portland, Oregon, as if the storm sensed the mounting tension within. Emma crouched in her bathroom, the cold tile biting into her knees. Her fingers wrapped tightly around the jagged remains of a beer bottle she'd grabbed from the kitchen counter. The pendant around her neck, a silver crescent moon etched with runes from her late grandmother Clara, pulsed with a faint warmth, a reminder of her rebirth, a second chance to rewrite the tragedy of her past life. Outside, Ryan Carter's desperate banging shook the doorframe, his voice a raw mix of agony and manipulation. Emma, please, you've always loved me. Don't let me suffer like this, he shouted, each word laced with the drugged haze that clouded his mind. Emma's heart raced, but her resolve was ironclad. In her past life, she'd opened that door, trusting Ryan, her childhood friend, only to be assaulted and betrayed. The pendant Clara's gift said to hold the power to alter fate had brought her back to this moment, and she wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Ryan's pleas grew frantic, the door's wood splintering under his weight. Emma, I can't take it. Open the door. His voice cracked, teetering between helplessness and something darker, a hunger he couldn't control. Emma's mind flashed to Rachel Bennett, Ryan's girlfriend, who'd orchestrated this nightmare. With her sharp smiles and calculated charm, Rachel had drugged Ryan to test his loyalty, leaving Emma as the bait in a cruel trap. The bathroom felt smaller, with each thud the walls closing in as Emma gripped the bottle tighter. She thought of her father Michael, a retired firefighter who'd taught her to stand her ground, his voice echoing in her mind. You're stronger than you know, kiddo. She thought of Susan and William Carter, Ryan's parents, who ran Carter Celebrations, a thriving event-planning business in Portland. Susan had always treated Emma like a daughter, baking cookies for her and Ryan during their childhood summers. Stern but kind William had once offered to fund Emma's art school dreams. They deserved to know the truth about Rachel, about what Ryan had become under her influence. The banging intensified, the doorframe creaking ominously. Emma's breath hitched as she remembered her past life's assault, the way Ryan's drugged strength had overpowered her, the way Rachel and their friends Jake and Lily had blamed her afterward. This time she was ready. She'd called 911 and the sirens were close, their wail piercing the storm. But Ryan wasn't stopping. A loud crack echoed as the door began to give way, splinters flying inward. Emma stood, her back pressed against the sink, the broken bottle raised like a weapon. Ryan, stay back, she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. I don't want to hurt you, but I will. The door burst open with a deafening crash, wood and plaster scattering across the living room floor. Ryan staggered in his blue eyes, bloodshot, his dark hair dripping with rain. His shirt clung to his chest, soaked and torn from his frantic efforts. "Emma, don't be scared," he muttered. His voice slurred, his steps unsteady as he lurched toward her. "It'll be over soon. You'll feel good too." The words sent a chill down her spine, echoing the nightmare of her past life. She backed into the corner, the bottle trembling in her hand. "Ryan, don't come closer," she warned, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm scared. If you take one more step, I won't hold back." He smiled, a twisted, unfamiliar expression that didn't belong to the boy she'd once known. "Emma, you love me," he said, his voice low and coaxing. "You wouldn't hurt me." He reached out his fingers, brushing her collar, tugging at her shirt. Emma's fear turned to fury, the pendant's warmth surging like a fire. She wasn't that naive girl anymore. She was reborn, armed with the knowledge of what Ryan was capable of and what Rachel had planned. As he pulled harder, trying to close the distance, Emma's grip tightened on the bottle. "Ryan, stop," she screamed, her voice breaking with sobs. "Please go back." The air was tense, the storm outside roaring in sync with her racing heart. Ryan's hand tightened on her collar, his face inches from hers, his breath hot and uneven. Emma's mind screamed with memories of her past life's pain, of Rachel's smug laughter, of the shame that had driven her to her death. She wouldn't let it happen again. The pendant glowed brighter, as if Clara's spirit urged her to act. Emma raised the bottle higher, her voice a desperate plea. "Ryan, I'm begging you, don't make me do this." Just as Ryan leaned closer, his intent clear in his drugged eyes, the sound of sirens exploded into the room, red and blue lights flashing through the shattered doorway. Emma's heart leaped. Help was here. Ryan's grip faltered, but he didn't stop, his hand still clutching her shirt. In that moment, Emma made her choice. With a cry of defiance, she drove the jagged bottle into his lower abdomen, twisting it hard. Blood poured out, staining her hands, dripping onto the hardwood floor. Ryan screamed a raw, guttural sound and collapsed, clutching his wound. Emma dropped the bottle, her body shaking as she backed away, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Ryan, what were you trying to do?" The pendant's warmth faded slightly, as if acknowledging her survival. She sank to the floor, clutching her chest as police officers stormed into the house, their boots crunching over the debris. "Portland PD." "Hands up," one shouted, pulling Ryan's writhing form away from her. Another officer, a kind-eyed woman, draped a jacket over Emma's shoulders. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she said softly. "We've got you." Emma nodded, her sobs quieting as she leaned against the officer. Ryan's moans filled the room as paramedics rushed in, but Emma's thoughts were elsewhere. Rachel had done this, drugged Ryan, set this trap, just like in her past life. But this time, Emma had fought back. The pendant, Clara's gift, had given her the strength to change her fate, and she wouldn't stop here. She'd expose Rachel, make her pay, and ensure justice for the Emma who'd suffered. The storm outside raged on, but inside, Emma felt a spark of hope, a fire kindled by her rebirth, ready to burn through the lies that had destroyed her once before. The Portland police station was a blur of fluorescent lights and muted voices as Emma Wilson sat in a hard plastic chair, a paper cup of lukewarm coffee trembling in her hands. The pendant around her neck, Clara's silver crescent moon, hung heavy, its faint warmth a quiet anchor amidst the chaos. Her clothes were still damp from the rain, her knuckles stained with Ryan Carter's blood from the moment she'd stabbed him to save herself. The memory of his bloodshot eyes, his desperate lunge, replayed in her mind, but she pushed it down. She was alive, safe, and reborn. Thanks to Clara's gift, she'd escaped the fate that had claimed her in her past life. The officer who'd comforted her, Sergeant Laura Hayes, sat across from her, scribbling notes. "You did the right thing," Emma, Laura said, her voice steady. "We're testing Ryan's blood now. If he was drugged, we'll find out what and who's behind it." Emma nodded, her throat tight. She knew exactly who was behind it, Rachel Bennett, Ryan's girlfriend, who'd orchestrated this nightmare to test his loyalty, just as she had in Emma's past life. In that life, Emma had opened the door, trusting Ryan only to be assaulted, blamed, and publicly shamed. This time she'd called the police, slammed the door, and fought back. The pendant had brought her back to this night, and she was determined to see Rachel's plan unravel. Emma's thoughts drifted to her father, Michael, who was on his way to the station. A retired firefighter, Michael had raised her alone after her mother left when she was 5. He'd taught her to trust her instincts, to fight for herself, and she could already hear his gruff voice. "You're tougher than this, kiddo." She thought of Susan and William Carter, Ryan's parents, who ran Carter celebrations. With her warm hugs and homemade cookies, Susan had always seen Emma as family, hinting she'd make a better match for Ryan than Rachel. More reserved, William had offered to pay for Emma's art classes, believing in her talent. They'd be devastated to learn what Ryan had done, what Rachel had caused. The station door swung open, and Michael burst in, his gray hair disheveled, his firefighter's build filling the room. Emma, he called, rushing to her side. He knelt, checking her for injuries, his hands gentle but firm. "Are you hurt?" "What happened?" Emma's eyes welled up, but she shook her head. "I'm okay, Dad," she whispered, leaning into his embrace. "I stopped him. I had to." Michael's jaw tightened, but he nodded, pride flickering in his eyes. "You did well, kid. I'm here now." Laura approached, her notepad tucked away. "We need your statement, Emma, but take your time. Ryan's at the hospital, non-life-threatening wound, but he's under guard. We're investigating everyone from the retreat you mentioned." Emma nodded, her mind racing. The retreat, a company outing for Carter celebrations at a cabin in the Columbia River Gorge, had been Rachel's stage. She'd drugged Ryan, left Emma alone with him, and planned to catch them in a compromising position to guilt Ryan into staying with her. Emma had mentioned the retreat to the 911 operator, knowing it would point the police toward Rachel, Jake, and Lily, the co-workers, who'd enabled her scheme. As Emma recounted the night Ryan's knocks, his drugged desperation, her defensive stab, her voice grew steady. The pendant's warmth pulsed as if Clara's spirit approved of her courage. She left out the rebirth, the impossible truth of her second chance, but the memory of her past life fueled her words. In that life, Rachel had stormed into the cabin with Jake and Lily, accusing Emma of seducing Ryan. "You shameless slut," Rachel had screamed, while Jake sneered, desperate much, and Lily added, "You planned this." Their lies had buried Emma in shame, leading to her downfall. Now Emma's statement was a weapon aimed at exposing the truth. The station buzzed as officers brought in Rachel, Jake, and Lily, their faces pale under the harsh lights. Rachel's sharp features were taut with panic, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun. Jake, a lanky marketing assistant, avoided Emma's gaze, while Lily, Rachel's cousin and a junior planner, fidgeted nervously. Emma watched from the waiting area, her heart cold. Rachel's eyes met hers, and for a moment Emma saw fear, a crack in the facade Rachel had worn so well. "It was her," Rachel blurted, pointing at Emma. "She drugged Ryan to trap him. She's always wanted him." The room went quiet. Laura raised an eyebrow, her voice calm but cutting. "Interesting. We never mentioned what kind of drug was used. How'd you know it was an aphrodisiac?" Rachel's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I just guessed," she stammered. "Emma's always had a thing for Ryan. She must have done it." But her words faltered, and Emma saw the officers exchange glances. Rachel had slipped, and the truth was closing in. Jake cracked first, his voice shaking. "It wasn't us, okay? Rachel planned it. She drugged Ryan's drink at the retreat to test if he'd stay loyal. She told us to leave Emma alone with him." Lily nodded frantically, her eyes wide. "Rachel said if Ryan messed up, she'd catch them and make him feel guilty. She promised us promotions if we kept quiet." Emma's stomach churned, but she wasn't surprised. Jake and Lily had known the truth in their past life, but joined Rachel's attack, their taunts cutting deeper than Rachel's lies. Now faced with legal consequences, they were betraying her to save themselves. Laura's expression hardened. "You're all coming with us for questioning. Rachel, you're detained pending the drug test results." Rachel's scream echoed as officers led her away, her composure shattered. "You can't do this. Ryan won't press charges," but Emma knew better. Rachel's plan had backfired, and the pendant's warmth told her this was only the beginning. She thought of Susan and William, who'd likely arrive soon, furious at Rachel's betrayal. She thought of her own plan already forming to spread whispers about Rachel's scheme to ensure Ryan's reputation crumbled alongside hers. Michael squeezed her shoulder, his voice low. "You're safe now, Emma. I won't let anyone hurt you again." Emma nodded, the pendant's glow fading slightly, as if Clara's spirit knew this battle was won. But the war wasn't over. Rachel's arrest was the first step, and Emma would make sure every piece of her past life's pain was avenged. The police station hummed with activity, but Emma felt a quiet strength growing within her. She was reborn, and this time, justice would be hers. The fluorescent lights of the Portland police station buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow over Emma Wilson as she sat in the waiting area, her hands wrapped around a now cold coffee cup. The pendant around her neck, a silver crescent moon, etched with runes from her late grandmother Clara, pulsed faintly, its warmth a quiet reminder of her rebirth, a second chance to undo the horrors of her past life. Her clothes were still damp from the rain, her knuckles raw from clutching the broken beer bottle she'd used to stab Ryan Carter in self-defense. The chaos of the night, Ryan's drugged intrusion, the splintered door, the police's timely arrival lingered in her mind, but Emma's focus was razor sharp. She knew Rachel Bennett, Ryan's girlfriend, had orchestrated this nightmare, just as she had in Emma's past life. This time, Emma was ready to fight back. Sergeant Laura Hayes had taken her statement, and now Emma waited as the police questioned Rachel, Jake, and Lily, the co-workers from Carter Celebrations who'd been at the Columbia River Gorge retreat. Emma's eyes drifted to the station's glass partition where Rachel's panicked gestures were visible in the interrogation room. Emma's thoughts, however, spiraled back to her past life, the source of her resolve. The pendant said to carry Clara's spirit, and the power to rewrite fate had brought her back to this night, and the memories of her previous suffering fueled her determination. In that past life, Emma was 23, a graphic designer living in her Maple Street house, her heart tethered to Ryan Carter, her childhood friend. They'd grown up together in Portland's Maplewood suburb, sharing bike rides along Tryon Creek, sneaking into downtown theaters, and dreaming of intertwined futures. Ryan, the golden boy of Carter Celebrations, was charming but flawed, craving admiration. Emma's love for him blinded her to those flaws until Rachel entered the picture. Rachel, a temp at the family business, wielded her charisma like a weapon, ensnaring Ryan while viewing Emma as a rival. Rachel's jealousy turned vicious during a company retreat at a rustic cabin in the gorge. Emma's hands tightened around the coffee cup as the memory unfolded. Rachel had slipped an aphrodisiac into Ryan's drink, a cruel test of his loyalty. She'd left Emma alone with him in the cabin, knowing his drugged state would lead to chaos. In that past life, Emma heard Ryan's desperate knocks, his pleas for help, and worried for his safety, opened the door. It was a mistake that shattered her. Ryan, lost to the drug's effects, overpowered her, pinning her to the bed. His strength was terrifying, his actions relentless, leaving her bruised and broken after an hour of violence. Emma's pleas went unheard, her love for him twisted into a weapon against her. The betrayal deepened when Rachel burst into the cabin with Jake and Lily. Rachel's crocodile tears were a performance. "You seduced him, you shameless slut," she screamed, her voice dripping with rehearsed outrage. Jake, a lanky marketing assistant, sneered, "Desperate for a man, huh?" While Lily, Rachel's cousin and a junior planner, added, "You planned this, didn't you?" Ryan, dazed but eager to please. Rachel turned on Emma. "She must have drugged me," he muttered, his words a knife to her heart. "I'd never do this otherwise." The group's accusations piled on each word, a lash slut homewrecker pathetic. Emma curled up on the bed, her clothes torn, and could barely speak. "It wasn't me," she whispered, but their hostile glares silenced her. The shame followed her home. Emma hid, avoiding Ryan, Rachel, and the world, but the nightmare wasn't over. Ryan, desperate to prove his loyalty to Rachel, lured Emma to a meeting under the pretense of an apology. "I'm sorry, Emma," he'd said, his eyes cold. "Let's talk." Trusting him, she drank the coffee he offered, not knowing it was spiked. She woke hours later in a downtown Portland loft, surrounded by strangers, her body violated, cameras flashing. The scandal exploded, online photos and videos, her face unblurred, branding her as a pariah. Headlines screamed local designers' depraved night, and social media tore her apart. Emma confronted Ryan, her voice raw with pain. "Why, Ryan? What did I do to deserve this?" He laughed dismissively. "It's just a few pictures. Pretend it was me. You got your moment of fame." Rachel, smirking, added, "This is your karma, Emma." The humiliation was unbearable. Emma's father, Michael, tried to shield her, but the public's judgment was relentless. Susan and William Carter, who'd once seen her as family, turned away ashamed of the scandal. Emma, drowning in despair, retreated to her bathroom where she slit her wrists, her blood staining the water, as news of Ryan and Rachel's engagement flooded the media. Now in the police station, the pendant's warmth steadied Emma's shaking hands. Clara's gift had given her this chance to rewrite her story, and she wouldn't waste it. She thought of Michael, who'd rushed to her side, his protective presence a lifeline. She thought of Susan and William, who'd be devastated by Ryan's actions but deserved the truth. She thought of Jake and Lily, who'd known Rachel's plan but stayed silent, their complicity a betrayal she'd ensure they paid for. Emma's statement to Laura was precise, pointing the police toward the retreat and planting the seeds to expose Rachel's scheme. Emma saw Rachel's panic escalate through the glass, her accusations against Emma faltering. Jake and Lily, sweating under the officer's scrutiny, were already cracking their confessions spilling out. Emma's lips curved into a faint, cold smile. In her past life, she'd been the victim silenced and shamed. Now reborn, she was the one setting the trap. The pendant glowed softly as if Clara's spirit whispered, "Keep going, Emma. Justice is yours." The station's hum faded as Emma focused on her next move. Rachel's downfall was just the beginning, and Ryan would follow. The Portland police station's waiting area smelled of stale coffee and antiseptic, starkly contrasting the storm raging outside. Emma Wilson sat beside her father Michael, his calloused hand gripping hers, grounding her as she processed the night's events. The pendant around her neck, Clara's silver crescent moon, pulsed faintly, its warmth a reminder of her rebirth, a second chance to escape the horrors of her past life. Rachel Bennett had been detained, her plan to drug Ryan Carter and trap Emma exposed by her own slip. Jake and Lily, her complicit co-workers, confessed that their fear of legal consequences outweighs their loyalty. But Emma's mind was elsewhere, lost in the final crushing moments of her past life, the cost of the shame that had driven her to her death. In that past life, the scandal orchestrated by Rachel and enabled by Ryan had destroyed Emma. After the assault at the Columbia River Gorge cabin, the public shaming began. Photos and videos from the depraved party Ryan had lured her to spread across Portland's gossip blogs and social media, her face unblurred, her name dragged through the mud. The headlines of local designers' shameful night blared, painting her as a reckless seductress. Comments online were merciless, slut, whore, desperate. Emma's freelance clients dropped her inbox flooded with hate. She hid in her Maple Street house, curtains drawn, unable to face the world. Michael had tried to help, but his firefighter's strength was no match for the intangible wounds of public scorn. He'd said, "You're more than their lies, kiddo," but Emma couldn't hear him over the noise of her shame. Susan and William Carter, who'd once treated her like a daughter, distanced themselves. The association rocked their event planning business, Carter Celebrations. Susan, who'd baked cookies for Emma and Ryan as kids couldn't meet her eyes. William, who'd offered to fund her art classes, sent a curt email. "We're disappointed, Emma." Their rejection stung almost as much as Ryan's betrayal. Emma had confronted Ryan one last time, driven by a desperate need for answers. She found him at a downtown cafe, Rachel at his side, her smile smug. "Why, Ryan?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. "What did I do to deserve this?" Ryan's laugh was cold, dismissive. "It's just a few pictures, Emma. Pretend it was me. You got your moment of fame." Rachel leaned in, her voice dripping with mockery. "This is your karma, Emma. You should have stayed away from my man." Their words were a final blow, crushing what little dignity she had left. The end came in her bathroom, where she'd hidden from Ryan tonight. Emma sat in the tub, the water warm against her skin, a razor in her hand. The pendant, Clara's gift, lay on the counter. She hadn't worn it that day, hadn't felt its warmth. As she slit her wrists, the blood swirled in the water, and her thoughts drifted to Ryan and Rachel's engagement announcement plastered across the news. Her death ironically cleared the way for Rachel to win Susan and William's approval. They'd disapproved of Rachel favoring Emma as a match for Ryan, but the scandal made Emma untouchable, paving Rachel's path to the Carter family. Now in the police station, the pendant's glow steadied Emma's resolve. Clara's stories of second chances weren't myths. The pendant had brought her back to this night where her downfall began. She wasn't sure how it worked, only that its warmth felt like Clara's hand guiding her, urging her to fight. Emma thought of Michael, who'd rushed to her side, his protective anger a shield. She thought of Susan and William, who were on their way, likely furious at Rachel's betrayal. She thought of Jake and Lily, whose confessions would lead to fines and ruined reputations, a small but satisfying consequence for their silence. The station door swung open, and Susan Carter stormed in, her face a mix of fury and grief. William followed, his stern demeanor cracking under the weight of the situation, their attorney close behind. "Who drugged my son, Susan?" demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Her eyes landed on Emma, softening instantly. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, pulling Emma into a hug. "Are you okay? I'm so sorry." Emma nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "I'm fine, Susan. I had to stop him." William's jaw tightened. "We'll make this right, Emma. That girl Rachel, she's done." Through the glass, Emma saw Rachel in the interrogation room, her composure shattered as officers pressed her. "It was Emma," Rachel screamed, but her voice was weak, her lies unraveling. Susan's gaze turned cold. "I've known Emma since she was a child," she told Laura. "She's the daughter-in-law I wanted for Ryan. Why would she need to drug him? Rachel's the one with no morals." William nodded, his voice low. Investigate her thoroughly. Who knows what else she's capable of? Emma's heart warmed at their support, but her mind was already plotting. She'd spread whispers about Rachel's scheme using Portland's tight-knit gossip network blogs, social media mutual friends to ensure Rachel's reputation crumbled. She'd target Ryan too, exposing his role in her past life's pain. The pendant pulsed as if Clara approved. Michael squeezed her hand. You're safe now, kiddo. We'll get through this. Emma nodded, a quiet fire burning within her. Rachel's arrest was the first step, but Emma's justice would be complete only when Ryan and Rachel faced the full weight of their actions. The storm outside had eased, but inside Emma, a storm of her own was brewing, ready to sweep away the ghosts of her past. The Portland police station buzzed with a restless energy, its fluorescent lights casting stark shadows across the waiting area, where Emma Wilson sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The pendant around her neck, a silver crescent moon, etched with runes from her late grandmother Clara, pulsed with a faint warmth, a constant reminder of her rebirth, a second chance to rewrite the tragedy of her past life. Her father Michael sat beside her, his retired firefighter's frame tense, his gray eyes scanning the room for any threat. Emma's clothes were still damp from the rain-soaked chaos of the night when she'd stabbed Ryan Carter in self-defense to stop his drugged assault. The memory of his bloodshot eyes and desperate pleas lingered, but Emma's focus was sharp. Rachel Bennett, Ryan's girlfriend, had orchestrated this nightmare, and now the truth was unraveling. Emma watched Rachel's composure crumble through the interrogation room's glass partition. Her blonde hair was disheveled, her sharp features twisted in panic as she pointed a trembling finger toward Emma. It was her. Rachel shouted, her voice shrill. Emma drugged Ryan to trap him. She's always been obsessed with him. But her accusation faltered under the steady gaze of Sergeant Laura Hayes, who leaned forward, her notepad in hand. Interesting, Laura said, her tone deceptively calm. We never mentioned the drug was an aphrodisiac. How did you know that, Rachel? The room fell silent, the weight of Rachel's slip hanging like a guillotine. Emma's lips curved into a faint, cold smile. Rachel's lies had buried her in her past life, painting her as a seductress who'd lured Ryan into betrayal. Back then, during a company retreat at a cabin in the Columbia River Gorge, Rachel had drugged Ryan to test his loyalty, leaving Emma alone with him as bait. When Emma, naive and trusting, opened the door to help him, Ryan assaulted her, and Rachel's staged outrage, backed by their co-workers Jake and Lily, had destroyed Emma's life. The scandal that followed, fueled by a second betrayal at a depraved party, had driven Emma to suicide. But now, reborn through the pendant's mysterious power, Emma had called the police, fought back, and set the stage for Rachel's downfall. Rachel stammered, her face paling. I just guessed, she said, her voice breaking. Emma's always had bad intentions. She wanted Ryan for herself, but her words sounded hollow, and Emma saw the officers exchange knowing glances. Jake, a lanky marketing assistant at Carter Celebrations, cracked under the pressure first. It wasn't us, he blurted, his hands shaking. Rachel planned the whole thing. At the retreat, she put something in Ryan's drink to see if he'd stay loyal. She told us to leave Emma alone with him. Lily, Rachel's cousin and a junior planner, nodded frantically, her eyes wide with fear. Rachel said if Ryan messed up, she'd catch them and guilt him into staying with her. She promised us promotions if we kept quiet. Emma's stomach churned, but she wasn't surprised. Jake and Lily had known the truth in their past life, but joined Rachel's attack, their taunts. Desperate, much cutting deeper than Rachel's lies. Now faced with legal consequences, they were betraying her to save themselves. Laura's expression hardened as she scribbled notes. You're all staying for further questioning, she said, her voice firm. Rachel, you're detained pending Ryan's blood test results. Rachel's scream echoed through the glass. You can't do this, Ryan won't press charges, but Emma knew better. Rachel's plan had collapsed, and the pendant's warmth pulsed as if Clara's spirit nodded in approval. Emma thought of her father, Michael, who'd rushed to her side, his protective presence a lifeline. A retired firefighter, Michael had raised her alone after her mother left, teaching her to trust her instincts. You're tougher than this kiddo, he'd always said, and tonight she'd proven him right. She thought of Susan and William Carter, Ryan's parents, who ran Carter Celebrations. With her warm hugs and homemade cookies, Susan had always seen Emma as a daughter, hinting she'd be a better match for Ryan than Rachel. Stern but kind, William offered to fund Emma's art classes, believing in her talent. They were on their way, likely furious at Rachel's betrayal, and Emma knew their support would be crucial. The station door swung open, and Susan stormed in, her face a mask of fury and grief. William followed his tall frame rigid, their attorney close behind. Who drugged my son? Susan demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut through the station's hum. Her eyes landed on Emma, softening instantly. Oh, Emma, sweetheart, she said, rushing forward to pull her into a hug. Are you okay? I'm so sorry you went through this. Emma's throat tightened, but she nodded. I'm okay, Susan. I had to stop him. William's jaw clenched, his voice low. We'll make this right, Emma. That girl Rachel, she's finished. Susan turned to Laura, her eyes blazing. I've known Emma since she was a child. She's the daughter-in-law I wanted for Ryan. Why would she need to drug him? Rachel's the one with no morals. William nodded, his voice steady. Investigate her thoroughly. Who knows what else she's capable of? Emma's heart warmed at their support, but her mind was already plotting. She'd spread whispers about Rachel's scheme through Portland's gossip network blogs, social media mutual friends, to ensure Rachel's reputation crumbled. She'd target Ryan too, exposing his role in her past life's pain. The pendant glowed softly, as if Clara approved of her plan. Michael squeezed Emma's hand, his voice low. You're safe now, kiddo. We'll get through this. Emma nodded, a quiet fire burning within her. Rachel's detention was the first step, but Emma's justice would be complete only when Ryan and Rachel faced the full weight of their actions. Jake and Lily, their careers tainted by their confessions, would face fines and social ostracism, a small but satisfying consequence. The station's hum faded as Emma focused on her next move, the pendant's warmth urging her forward. The truth was out, and the storm of her past gave way to a reckoning. The Portland police station's waiting area was a cold contrast to the storm that had raged outside, its fluorescent lights flickering as Emma Wilson leaned against her father Michael, his arm a steady anchor around her shoulders. The pendant around her neck, Clara's silver crescent moon, pulsed faintly, its warmth a reminder of her rebirth, a second chance to rewrite the tragedy that had claimed her in her past life. Rachel Bennett had been detained, her plan to drug Ryan Carter and trap Emma exposed by her own careless words. Jake and Lily, her complicit co-workers from Carter celebrations, confessed that their fear of legal consequences outweighs their loyalty. But Emma's thoughts were on the next phase of her plan, a quiet fire burning within her as she prepared to dismantle Ryan and Rachel's world. The station door swung open again, and Susan Carter's heels clicked sharply against the tile, her face a storm of fury and maternal grief. William Carter followed, his stern demeanor cracking under the weight of their son's actions, their attorney trailing with a briefcase. Susan's eyes locked onto Emma, softening with regret. Emma, sweetheart, she said, pulling her into a tight embrace. I'm so sorry you went through this. Are you hurt? Emma shook her head, her voice steady, despite the ache in her chest. I'm okay, Susan. I had to stop him. I didn't want to hurt him, but he left me no choice. Susan's grip tightened, tears welling in her eyes. That boy, what's happened to him? William stepped forward, his voice low but firm. We'll make this right, Emma. That girl Rachel, she's done. We'll make sure she pays for what she did to our son, to you. Emma nodded, the pendant's warmth pulsing as if Clara's spirit approved their support. In her past life, Susan and William had turned away from her, shamed by the scandal Rachel orchestrated. Susan, who'd baked cookies for Emma and Ryan during their Maplewood summers, had once seen Emma as the ideal match for her son. William, who'd offered to fund Emma's art classes, had believed in her talent. Now their trust in her was a weapon she could wield against Rachel. Sergeant Laura Hayes approached, her notepad tucked away. Ryan's stable at the hospital, she said. Non-life-threatening wound, but he's under guard. His blood test confirmed an aphrodisiac, the same one Rachel mentioned. We're charging her with illegal use of a controlled substance. Susan's face hardened. I knew that girl was trouble, she said, her voice sharp. I told Ryan she wasn't good enough, but he wouldn't listen. Emma was always the one we wanted for him. She turned to Laura, her tone commanding. Investigate her thoroughly. Who knows what else she's done? Emma's mind raced as she listened. In her past life, Rachel's lies had painted her as a seductress, and Ryan's betrayal had sealed her fate. After the assault at the Columbia River Gorge cabin, Rachel had staged a scene accusing Emma while Jake and Lily taunted her. The scandal that followed photos from a depraved party Ryan lured her to had driven Emma to suicide. Now, reborn, Emma was turning the tables. She'd already tipped off a local gossip blogger, a friend from her art classes, about Rachel's scheme, planting seeds that would spread through Portland's tight-knit social circles. Rachel's reputation would crumble, and Ryan's would follow. The hospital was the next battleground. Emma and Michael followed Susan and William to Portland General, where Ryan lay recovering. His room was stark, the beeping of monitors a steady rhythm against the hum of fluorescent lights. Ryan's face was pale, his abdomen bandaged, but his blue eyes burned with defiance as he saw Emma. "What the hell, Emma?" he shouted, struggling to sit up. "Why'd you turn Rachel in? I'm the one who hurt you, not her. She's just a girl locked up all night. Do you know how scared she must be?" His words were a twisted echo of his past life's betrayal, blaming Emma while defending Rachel. William's face reddened and he stepped forward, his voice booming. "Enough, Ryan." He slapped Ryan hard, knocking him back against the pillows. Susan thrust a stack of lab reports into his face. "Look at this," she snapped. "This drug could have killed you. Your kidneys were at risk. Emma saved your life and you're yelling at her." Ryan's eyes flickered with confusion, but he doubled down. "Rachel didn't mean any harm. I'm the victim here, not Emma. She stabbed me." Emma's stomach churned, but she kept her voice calm. Her eyes locked on Ryan's. "I was scared, Ryan. You broke into my house out of control. I called the police because I thought you'd collapse, or worse." The pendant pulsed as if Clara urged her to stay composed. Michael's hand tightened on her shoulder, his voice low. "Don't you dare blame my daughter, Ryan. You tried to hurt her." Susan's eyes blazed as she turned to Ryan. "You should be apologizing not just for tonight, but for even thinking you could do that to her. If the police hadn't arrived, who knows how far you'd have gone." Ryan turned his head, mumbling. "Emma's always liked me. She wouldn't have minded." William raised his arm again, but Ryan's pitiful expression stopped him. "Dad, please," Ryan said, his voice breaking. "Get Rachel out. If you don't, I'll tell the police I took the drug willingly. I'd rather go to jail than let her suffer." Emma's blood ran cold. Ryan's delusion was unshakable, just as it had been in her past life. But this time she saw it as an opportunity. She'd use his loyalty to Rachel to destroy them both. Michael's face darkened, but before he could speak, a new figure burst into the room. Emma's father's friend Tom, a burly mechanic who'd known her since childhood. Tom's fist connected with Ryan's jaw, sending him reeling. "You little punk," Tom growled. "You tried to hurt Emma, and you're still defending that snake." Emma's eyes welled up as she threw herself into Tom's arms. "I was so scared," she sobbed. Michael pulled her close, his voice cold. "Ryan, that's attempted assault. You'll answer for it in court." Shaken by Ryan's defiance, Susan and William didn't defend him. "Apologize, Ryan," William snapped, kicking his son's knee, forcing him to the floor. Ryan muttered reluctantly. "Sorry," but Emma saw the anger in his eyes. She knew this wasn't the end. She'd spread more whispers through her blogger friend, through mutual contacts at Carter celebrations, ensuring Ryan's reputation as a reckless playboy spread. Jake and Lily, already facing fines, would find their careers stalled, their complicity exposed. The pendant glowed as if Clara whispered, "Keep going." Emma's justice unfolded, and the Carter family's reckoning was just the beginning. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung heavy in the air of Portland General Hospital, where Emma Wilson stood in the corridor outside Ryan Carter's room, her heart pounding with a mix of resolve and disgust. The pendant around her neck, a silver crescent moon etched with runes from her late grandmother Clara, pulsed faintly, its warmth a steady reminder of her rebirth, a second chance to undo the horrors of her past life. Her father Michael stood beside her, his retired firefighter's frame tense, his gray eyes burning with protective anger. Susan and William Carter Ryan's parents flanked her, their faces etched with grief and fury over their son's actions. Rachel Bennett, Ryan's girlfriend, was detained at the Portland police station, her scheme to drug Ryan and trap Emma exposed by her own careless words. However, Ryan's delusional loyalty to Rachel is a fire Emma intends to use against him. Inside the room, Ryan lay pale against the hospital bed, his abdomen bandaged from the stab wound Emma had inflicted in self-defense. His blue eyes, once bright with charm, were clouded with defiance as he glared at her. "What the hell, Emma?" he shouted, his voice hoarse but venomous. "Why'd you turn Rachel in? I'm the one who hurt you, not her. She's locked up, scared out of her mind, and you're acting like the victim." His words were a twisted echo of her past life, where he'd assaulted her during a drugged frenzy at a Columbia River Gorge cabin, then blamed her to appease Rachel. In that life, Rachel's lies, backed by their co-workers Jake and Lily, had painted Emma as a seductress, driving her to suicide. Now reborn through the pendant's mysterious power, Emma was rewriting her fate. Susan's face flushed with anger, her voice sharp as she thrust a stack of lab reports at Ryan. "This drug could have killed you, Ryan. Your kidneys were on the brink and Emma saved your life by calling the police. You should be on your knees thanking her. William's jaw clenched, his stern demeanor cracking. You tried to hurt her son. If the police hadn't arrived, who knows how far you'd have gone. Ryan turned his head, mumbling. Emma's always liked me. She wouldn't have minded. His words sent a chill down Emma's spine, but she kept her voice calm, her eyes locked on his. I was scared, Ryan. You broke into my house out of control. I stabbed you to protect myself. Michael's hand tightened on her shoulder, his voice a low growl. Don't you dare blame my daughter, Ryan. You crossed a line. But Ryan's delusion was unshakable. Rachel didn't mean any harm, he insisted, struggling to sit up, wincing at the pain. I'm the victim here. Emma stabbed me, and now Rachel's suffering because of her. He turned to his parents, his voice pleading. Get Rachel out. If you don't, I'll tell the police I took the drug willingly. I'd rather go to jail than let her rot there. Emma's blood ran cold. Ryan's unquestioning loyalty to Rachel was precisely what she'd expected, and precisely what she'd used to destroy them both. Emma thought of her past life, where Ryan's betrayal had been absolute. After the assault, he'd lured her to a depraved party, spiking her drink and leaving her to be violated while cameras captured her shame. The scandal had spread across Portland's gossip blogs, branding her a pariah. Rachel's taunts. This is your karma, Emma had echoed as Emma slit her wrists, her blood staining the bathtub. Now the pendant's warmth urged her forward as if Clara's spirit whispered, turn their strength into weakness. Emma had already begun her plan, tipping off a friend, Mia, a local gossip blogger, about Rachel's scheme. Whispers were spreading through Portland's tight-knit social circles. Coffee shops, art galleries, Carter Celebration's client network painting Rachel as a manipulative schemer, and Ryan as her reckless pawn. Susan's eyes blazed as she turned to Ryan. You're defending the girl who drugged you. You should apologize to Emma, not just for tonight, but for even thinking you could hurt her. William's voice was ice. You're a disgrace, Ryan. We're done protecting you. But Ryan's pitiful expression softened them slightly. Dad, please, he said, his voice breaking. Rachel's my everything. I can't lose her. Emma saw her opening. She leaned forward, her voice gentle but calculated. I just wanted to keep you safe, Ryan. I was scared you'd collapse. That's why I called the police. Her words were a mask hiding the fire within. She'd ensure Ryan's loyalty to Rachel dragged him down. Michael pulled Emma aside, his voice low. He's not worth your tears, kiddo. Let him dig his own grave. Emma nodded, her mind racing. She thought of Susan and William, who'd once seen her as family, their event-planning empire now at risk because of Ryan's actions. She thought of Jake and Lily, whose confessions at the station would lead to fines and ruined careers their complicity exposed. Mia's blog post was already live, a subtle jab at Rachel's jealous antics at the retreat. Emma had texted mutual friends from Carter Celebrations, planting seeds of doubt about Ryan's character. Portland's gossip network was a web, and Emma was weaving it tightly around her enemies. As they left the hospital, Susan hugged Emma, her voice thick with regret. We'll make this right, sweetheart. Ryan will answer for this. William nodded, his eyes heavy. We're cutting him off until he sees sense. Emma's heart warmed at their support, but her resolve was cold. She'd spread more whispers, ensuring Ryan's reputation as a reckless playboy spread like wildfire. The pendant glowed as if Clara approved. Ryan's unquestioning loyalty was a chain, and Emma would use it to pull him and Rachel into the abyss. The hospital's sterile hum faded as Emma stepped into the night, the rain now a drizzle, her path clear. The Portland spring was in full bloom, cherry blossoms lining the streets of Maplewood as Emma Wilson walked to a diner on Hawthorne Boulevard, her heart steady, but her mind alight with purpose. 4 months had passed since Rachel Bennett's arrest, her scheme to drug Ryan Carter and trap Emma exposed at the police station. The pendant around Emma's neck, Clara's silver crescent moon, pulsed faintly, its warmth a reminder of her rebirth, a second chance to rewrite the tragedy of her past life. Rachel had been sentenced to 4 months for illegally using a controlled substance, a light punishment thanks to Ryan's letter of forgiveness. But Emma wasn't done. Her plan to dismantle Ryan and Rachel's lives was in motion, and today was a critical step. Emma's campaign of whispers had taken root. Emma had spread stories of Rachel's manipulation and Ryan's reckless behavior through Mia, her gossip blogger friend, and mutual contacts at Carter Celebrations. Portland's gossip network, coffee shops, art galleries, Social media hummed with rumors. Rachel drugged her boyfriend Ryan's a loose cannon. Ryan's reputation as the golden boy of Carter celebrations was crumbling, and his parents' event planning business suffered from the scandal. Susan and William had tried to salvage their son, setting him up with new women artists, athletes, intellectuals. But his obsession with Rachel repelled them. Why is he still into a girl who drugged him one date? Had asked, her voice dripping with disbelief, a story Mia gleefully posted. Emma thought of her past life where Ryan's betrayal had destroyed her. After assaulting her at the Columbia River Gorge cabin, he'd lured her to a depraved party, spiking her drink and leaving her to be violated while cameras captured her shame. The scandal had spread across Portland, driving her to suicide. Now reborn through the pendant's power, Emma was turning their tactics against them. Jake and Lily, Rachel's complicit co-workers, had faced fines and social ostracism, their careers stalled after confessing to the police. Emma's whispers had ensured their names were tied to the scandal, a small but satisfying justice. Emma sat across from Rachel at the diner, who'd been released that morning. Rachel's blonde hair was dull, her sharp features hardened by prison, her eyes narrowing as she glared at Emma. "What do you want, Emma?" "Here to gloat," she snapped, her voice bitter. Emma smiled, her expression gentle, but calculated, a mask honed over months of planning. "Not at all, Rachel. You know I've always cared about Ryan. I want him to be happy." Rachel's eyes flicked with suspicion, but she leaned forward, intrigued. "What are you getting at?" Emma's voice was steady, her words a carefully laid trap. "Ryan's only happy with you. But his parents, Susan and William, don't oppose you because they dislike you. It's because Ryan's their golden boy heir to Carter celebrations. If his reputation took a bigger hit, if he wasn't so perfect, they'd have no reason to keep you apart." Rachel's eyes lit up, a spark of greed igniting. Emma pressed on, her tone earnest. "Think about it. They'd have to accept you if Ryan's not the pristine son they're protecting. You could be together, no obstacles." Rachel leaned back, her mind clearly racing. Emma's heart thudded, but the pendant's warmth kept her calm. She'd planted the seed, knowing Rachel's ambition would do the rest. In her past life, Rachel had orchestrated a scandal to shame Emma, luring her to a party where photos destroyed her life. Now Emma was turning that tactic against her. She'd tipped off Mia about a party Rachel was planning, a repeat of the depraved event from Emma's past life set in a downtown Portland loft. Emma had ensured reporters tipped off through Mia's network would be there, cameras ready to capture Ryan in a compromising position. Rachel stood, her smile cold. "You're smarter than I thought, Emma. I'll handle it." She left the diner, her steps confident, unaware she was walking into Emma's trap. Emma sipped her coffee, her mind racing. She thought of Michael, who'd supported her through therapy sessions, helping her process the trauma of her past life. She thought of Susan and William, who'd cut Ryan off their business, reeling from his scandal, confined to their mansion to keep him from Rachel. Ryan was slipping through their grasp, his obsession blinding him. Emma had texted Mia that morning, ensuring the bloggers and reporters were ready. The party was tonight, and Ryan would be there, lured by Rachel's promise of reconciliation. That night, the scandal broke. Mia's blog post hit first, followed by local news: Carter heir spotted at wild Portland party. Photos flooded the internet, Ryan disheveled in compromising situations, his face unblurred. The headlines screamed Carter celebrations, golden boy falls, tanking the family business's stock. Susan and William were devastated, filing a police report claiming Ryan was lured under pretenses pointing at Rachel. Emma watched the news from her Maple Street house, the pendant glowing as if Clara whispered, "Well done." Rachel's plan had backfired, and Ryan's loyalty had led him to ruin. Emma's revenge unfolded, but the final blow was yet to come. The air in Portland was thick with the scent of cherry blossoms, but for Emma Wilson, the spring of 2026 carried the weight of a long-awaited reckoning. The pendant around her neck, a silver crescent moon etched with runes from her late grandmother Clara, pulsed faintly, its warmth a quiet affirmation of her rebirth, a second chance to undo the horrors of her past life. Rachel Bennett's release from her 4-month sentence set the stage for Emma's final trap, a meticulously planned scandal that mirrored the one that had destroyed her in her previous life. Through whispers spread via her blogger friend Mia and Portland's gossip network, Emma had ensured Rachel and Ryan Carter's reputations crumbled. Now the consequences were crashing down. Rachel's party in a downtown Portland loft, a repeat of the depraved event from Emma's past life, had been a disaster for Ryan. Tipped off by Mia, reporters captured photos of him in compromising situations, his face unblurred and headlines screaming Carter airs wild night tank's family business. Carter celebrations. The event planning empire run by Ryan's parents. Susan and William was reeling its stock plummeting as clients fled. Susan and William, furious at Rachel's manipulation, filed a police report claiming she'd lured Ryan under pretenses. The raid that followed uncovered a stash of illegal stimulants, including the aphrodisiac Rachel had used on Ryan before. Rachel was arrested again, this time facing charges of drug trafficking. Emma sat in her Maple Street house, scrolling through Mia's latest blog post, a satisfied smile tugging at her lips. The pendant's warmth pulsed as if Clara's spirit whispered, "You've done well." In her past life, Rachel had drugged Ryan to test his loyalty, leaving Emma to suffer the consequences: assault, public shaming, and suicide. Now reborn Emma had turned Rachel's tactics against her. Jake and Lily, Rachel's complicit co-workers from Carter Celebrations, had faced their own reckoning, fined for their silence, and ostracized in Portland's tight-knit professional circles, their careers in ruins. Emma had ensured their names were tied to the scandal, a small but fitting justice for their past taunts. At the police station, Rachel's arrest revealed a deeper web of crime. Witnesses confirmed she hadn't just drugged Ryan once. She'd purchased various illegal substances, including ones that caused memory loss in women and aggression in men, earning kickbacks by supplying drugged victims to party organizers. The evidence was damning, and 2 months later, Rachel was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. Watching the news from her living room, Emma felt a quiet triumph. Rachel's downfall was complete, but Ryan's was still unfolding. His unquestioning loyalty to her was a chain Emma had tightened around him. Ryan, meanwhile, refused to believe the truth. Convinced Rachel was innocent, he accused Emma and his parents of framing her. "She's the love of my life." He'd at Susan and William, who, fed up with his delusion, had him admitted to a psychiatric facility on the outskirts of Portland. But Ryan escaped, slipping through the cracks of a system overwhelmed by his family's influence. Susan and William, desperate to save Carter Celebrations, made a drastic move. They transferred control to Wendy, Ryan's half-sister from William's first marriage, a sharp-minded executive who'd long eyed the family business. Wendy acted swiftly, severing all public ties between the company and Ryan, his mother, and Rachel launching reforms to restore the brand's image. Emma learned of Ryan's disownment through Mia, who'd heard whispers at a Carter Celebrations event. Ryan, cut off from his family's wealth, was working odd jobs: a barista, a delivery driver, scraping by in a cramped apartment in southeast Portland. He visited Rachel in prison, his devotion unwavering, vowing to wait for her release. Emma, however, knew his loyalty was a weakness. She'd spread more rumors through Mia's blog, painting Ryan as a mentally unstable playboy, ensuring no one in Portland's social or professional circles would touch him. His parents' attempts to set him up with new women had failed. Dates recoiled at his tales of Rachel's instant noodle kindness, a story that only deepened his reputation as unhinged. Emma watched from a distance when Rachel was released, her heart steady. Ryan greeted her outside the prison, his face alight with hope, but Rachel's expression was cold, her eyes scanning his worn clothes and haggard face. "You're supposed to be a Carter," she sneered, her voice dripping with disgust. "You expect me to live in a dump like this?" Thinking she was concerned, Ryan said gently, "Rachel, I'd endure anything for you." But Rachel's scorn grew. "You're a pathetic loser, Ryan. A rich kid playing poor. You're useless." Her words were a blade cutting through his delusion. Hearing the story through Mia's network, Emma felt the pendant pulse, as if Clara approved. Days later, Rachel's betrayal reached its peak. Ryan caught her in their apartment with another man who tossed a wad of cash at him, laughing, "I paid for your girl, kid." The apartment reeked of betrayal, the sheets stained with Rachel's infidelity. Ryan's face flushed with shame, but instead of rage, he sat outside numb. When Rachel emerged, adjusting her clothes, she scoffed. "You waited for me, cut ties with your family, and for what? If you'd stayed rich, I might have cared. I'm done with this pathetic life." She walked out, leaving Ryan broken. That night, in a fit of despair, Ryan snapped. He grabbed Rachel, dragging her back into the apartment, and raised a kitchen knife. Blood spattered the floor as he stabbed her, his mind replaying Wendy's lavish wedding, a life he'd lost. "This should have been mine," he whispered before slashing his own throat. Days later, police found their bodies, ruling it a crime of passion. Reading the news, Emma felt no shock, only a cold satisfaction. The pendant's warmth faded, its purpose fulfilled. Ryan and Rachel's downfall was complete, their flaws the blade Emma had wielded. The Portland summer sun filtered through the cherry blossoms on Maple Street, casting dappled light across Emma Wilson's small craftsman house. She sat on her porch, a sketchbook in her lap, her pencil tracing the outlines of a crescent moon, her late grandmother Clara's pendant now resting quietly around her neck, its warmth gone, but its presence a reminder of her rebirth. The news of Ryan Carter and Rachel Bennett's deaths had broken weeks ago, a grim headline in Portland's paper's tragic end in Southeast Apartment. The police called it a crime of passion, but Emma knew the truth. Her carefully woven plan whispers through Mia's blog manipulation of Rachel's greed had led them to destruction. Justice at last was hers. In her past life, Emma had loved Ryan unquestioningly, her heart shattered by his assault at a Columbia River Gorge cabin orchestrated by Rachel's drugging. The betrayal deepened when Ryan lured her to a depraved party, her shame captured in photos that drove her to suicide. The pendant Clara's gift said to rewrite fate had brought her back to that fateful night, and Emma had seized her second chance. She'd called the police, stabbed Ryan in self-defense, and exposed Rachel's scheme, ensuring their downfall. Jake and Lily, Rachel's complicit co-workers, faced fines and social exile, their careers ruined by their silence. Emma's whispers had ensured Portland's gossip network branded them as enablers of fitting punishment. Wendy, Ryan's half-sister, had taken over Carter celebrations, and her reforms saved the business from collapse. She'd severed ties with Ryan's legacy, her superb efficiency contrasting with Susan and William's grief. Susan, who'd once seen Emma as a daughter, had retreated into mourning while William moved them abroad, unable to face Portland's whispers. Wendy, unburdened by sentiment, handled Ryan's death with indifference, not even telling her father and stepmother to spare them pain. Emma, hearing this through Mia, felt a pang of sympathy for Susan, but no regret. Her justice wasn't about hurting the Carters, but dismantling the lies that had destroyed her. Emma's father, Michael, had been her rock through it all. A retired firefighter, he'd held her close after the police station, his gruff voice promising, "No one will hurt you again, kiddo." He'd driven her to therapy sessions where she'd begun unpacking the trauma of her past life, the shame that had once driven her to despair. "You're stronger than your pain," her therapist said, and Emma was starting to believe it. She'd enrolled in art classes at a local community center, her sketches of Portland's landscapes, Tryon Creek, the Willamette River becoming a way to reclaim her voice. She volunteered at a women's shelter, offering support to others who'd faced betrayal, finding purpose in their healing. The pendant, its glow faded, lay against her chest, its purpose fulfilled. Clara's stories of second chances had been true, and Emma had used hers to rewrite her fate. She thought of Michael, who'd taught her to fight, Susan, who'd believed in her, Mia, whose blog had amplified her whispers. She thought of Ryan, whose unquestioning loyalty to Rachel had been his undoing, and Rachel, whose greed had led her to ruin. Emma had orchestrated their fall, using their flaws against them, just as they'd once used her love against her. The scandal at the loft, the photos, the arrests all mirrored her past life's pain, but this time she'd emerged victorious. Emma walked through Laurelhurst Park, the summer air warm and fragrant one evening. Children laughed on the playground, couples strolled hand in hand, and Emma felt free for the first time in 2 lives. Her sketchbook was tucked under her arm, filled with drawings that told her story not of shame but of survival. She'd started a blog of her own, anonymous but honest, sharing her healing journey to inspire others. Comments poured in from women who'd faced betrayals, thanking her for her courage. Emma smiled, her heart light. The pendant, now just a keepsake, glinted in the sunlight, symbolizing Clara's love and Emma's triumph. Michael joined her, his gray hair catching the breeze. "Proud of you, kiddo," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've come a long way." Emma leaned against him, her eyes on the horizon. "I'm just getting started, Dad." Her past life's pain was a shadow fading with each step she took. She'd avenged the Emma who'd died in despair, ensuring Ryan and Rachel paid for their crimes. Now she was building a new life of art, purpose, and peace. The cherry blossoms swayed above, and Emma walked forward, her justice a quiet victory, her future a canvas of hope.